Welcome to another episode of Golden Nuggets, Tips and Tales powered by Property Finder, the most trusted and widely used property portal in the region. With 10 million home seekers and industry professionals connecting every month, trust is the currency of this business. And behind the 700,000 listings on the platform, there's 700,000 tales of how someone earned that trust. We're back today with Lorenzo Cross, who's one of Property Finder's SuperAgents. He is a real estate agent from Strada. Welcome to the show. Today, we're going to drop a truth bomb. So if you could wave your magic wand and make one change to the real estate industry, what would it be?
For me, something that I've wanted for quite a while now, and I know there's a lot of brokers who are out there who probably wouldn't agree with this, but would be to make the fees flat throughout secondary market and off plan. Just to explain from the secondary market side, generally speaking, the buyer will pay a 2% fee and the seller will pay a 2% fee.
Not always, though.
Not always,
but it's catching on that more and more are paying.
Yeah, if you look at the majority of the top brokerages now, they will charge a fee. Yeah. And what you'll find will happen as well with a lot of companies who might not have the training to begin with will be to not mention the fee to the seller until the last minute and then drop it in then, where then the seller is saying, well, we can do the deal, but we're going to have to charge 2%. So you almost put them in the corner. So from an off-plan side now, you're looking at it where the projects that are being launched can go anywhere from starting 2% all the way up to 10 and even some cases 12% commission, which sounds amazing on paper. But the issue, looking at it not from a broker's perspective, but from a buyer or a seller, to try and get a bit of transparency in the market, is you want to be given advice based off of what's best for you as a buyer or the seller.
Not necessarily what's the highest commission.
Exactly,
for
not lining someone's pockets, where when you're a broker in the industry, you sort of understand how it works, where there's certain projects that, and if there's more than one person involved in the splits with the company, it can actually be then quite difficult to push certain projects because other agents might not work for 1%, 2%, whatever the fee is. So as a buyer, it sounds great that you're getting away with paying slightly less commission, or as a seller, but in reality, to actually get given the right advice, if everything was set as standard as a 4% fee, for example, across secondary market or off plan, you know that broker is advising you based off of what is right for you, not just to try and get them the highest commission.
Okay, so uniformity across fees, across the industry, across off-plan and secondary, so that advice is based purely on merit, not anything to do with...
And if you look at the majority of the top developers now, most will be paying that anyway. There's a few that are private developers or some others that will pay a much higher rate to, of course, incentivize brokers to push it. But in the market that we're in now, there's not actually any need in that. If a unit's priced correctly, whether that's secondary market or off plan,
it's going to go.
It should sell. Yeah. So I feel like what would then happen is, to begin with, for the short term, certain projects would then go under relatively quickly. But then you would start to see that the actual developers who are providing true value and a quality product will then sell out quicker. So it's given a lot more transparency to where the true value is, because there's certain projects right now which are being pushed. And if they're paying 10% commission, there's a reason why that they can't sell it otherwise.
And that 10% commission is probably not coming from them. It's
essentially coming from the buyer, isn't it? Because it's leveraged off of them. Okay, the buyer's not paying it themselves, so they might not feel it and they might not even know it. But if I was buying into an investment and the commission, if I knew the seller was paying 10%, 12% commission, there's got to be alarm bells that are raised there.
So do you think then Dubai is going to move into more of the American style, where you've got buyer's agents and seller's agents, and it's just a flat fee and that's it?
I think we've already started to see that to an extent. Even I've not been here for a huge amount of time. I've been here for 4.5 years. But since I started in the industry, I've already seen a big change from sellers that would just send their docs over to absolutely anyone. You drop them one WhatsApp message, they send you their passport, their title deed, which you think in the UK it would never happen to send it through straight away. But now where the market's starting to mature is people are starting to realize that actually there's value added in working with one real estate agent. The difficulty of doing that is, as a seller, you do almost pin yourself in a corner for a certain period of time. But when you've worked with that broker for a while, they've built the trust, and they may have sold 1 or 2 units for you that weren't exclusive, then the value is added there where you know they're working in your best interest. But it's the same with fees, where you're not just asking for, say, a 2% seller fee because I want more commission. You're doing it because you're providing them with an actual value there to say, I will protect you at all costs. I will take it out to the market without us looking desperate to sell. So we're getting the best offers we can, but also then I'm able to collaborate with other agents, which a lot of the time isn't possible if you're not covered by the seller.
Right. Okay. So there, apart from, the exclusivity factor that you're going to focus on it a little bit more, or perhaps push it as a premium or featured, whatever it may be, it actually hinders you if you're not getting it because you can't expose yourself to working with buyer's agents.
Yeah, the difficulty is, and it's the same conversation I have with a lot of sellers, where their main concern is, of course, the level of exposure, because without understanding what goes on behind the scenes, giving it to one agent, you think that that's the only person who's going to have access to that unit, so you rule out everyone else in the market. But in reality, if someone's approaching it in the correct way of an exclusive listing, you're taking on the property for X amount of time, 8 to 12 weeks, and you are going out to the market. So everyone who needs to see it, whether that's other agents, whether that's buyers, will still get access to it. But when it gets to the negotiation stage, which is the most important part of the deal, you've got full control over where the pricing is. Whereas previously, and what still sometimes happens now, where the units are listed with 3 different brokers, that buyer doesn't know. They're calling through the portals. They call 3 different agents to see it's the same unit. One tells them the price is non-negotiable. One says it's slightly negotiable, and the other one says, bring me a check. So it gives a false sense of perception with how desperate the seller is to actually get rid of their property.
And actually, it will give the seller the perception that there's multiple buyers,
exactly,
when actually it's only just one buyer.
So the whole thing is transparency. If we have that in the market of the exclusivity, the same with the buyer's agents, where they're working in their best interest, and then on top of that, the fees that are flat across the board, it's the best way for us to be able to get to a point where the buyers and sellers are being told advice for their best interest.
And they're being truly represented.
Exactly.
Okay. And there are still quite a lot of agents that don't want to work with, or don't want to co-broker, they don't want to do splits. What would you say to them?
I think a lot of that is perhaps naivety in this market now, where you could have got away with that 3 or 4 years ago. Even when I started, A to A's or agent to agents weren't as common. But now, especially with the presence of social media, most brokers are pushing social media, not just for buyers and sellers, it's to get their branding out there for other agents too. So if you're taking on a project, or you're taking on a property exclusive, you're doing the seller disjustice by not working with other agents. But that's where the fees come into it as well. If you've already got the agreement in place with the fees, then there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to work with another agent.
And so do you think developers are partly guilty of rewarding bad behavior?
To an extent, yeah. Don't get me wrong, the majority of the developers that people know as a sort of day-to-day won't be offering those commissions. But where I've seen a slight change in the market now is, if you've got a buyer that comes through that has a 2 million budget and they want a property that's secondary market, and there's no seller fee on that, there's a 2% fee there. So you're getting paid 40,000. In comparison to, you could sell them an off-plan project for 5%, you get paid 100,000. So you're 2.5x in your money. But that's not how the market should be. You're not providing them with the correct value. You're just doing that to try and get a quick pound note. Whereas if it was the same across the park, you can advise them correctly on that. You've got your fees agreed. If they want to pivot into off-plan or to a different project, then you're doing it to try and help them as best as you can, not help yourself.
So you said most of the good developers are actually not paying much more than how much? What percent?
4% would be standard. There's some that are actually paying slightly less than that. And in some ways...
They must be really good.
There's a few that are, and it's almost a testament to them as well to say that they're not desperate for it. But again, the issue with that, there's a certain project in the market at the moment which is paying lower commission than pretty much anyone else. The project is unbelievable, but it's not sold out.
Right.
So you're looking at it going, every factor to this, and if you look at the numbers, stacks up to say this should be one of those projects that sells out overnight.
Right.
The reason it hasn't is because brokers aren't pushing it, because if you're selling that project, it would take you 3 times the amount of sales than it would for something else that will pay you, say, 6% to do the same amount of commission. So
having a nice balance then.
Yeah.
So do you think buyers should start asking the question of, how much commission is this developer paying you?
Again, it's probably an unpopular opinion, but I would say so. I'm very transparent when I'm working with my clients to explain to them this is the commission that we're charging, and because even on the other foot, that buyer will eventually become a seller, and you already have your fees in place with them, so they understand there's no hidden costs when it comes to investments. But you're not telling them the commission for them to try and get a kickback out of it, because that's where your value is added, to explain to them this is what I think we should invest in. This is how that developer actually operates, because you can tell a lot from a developer as well. If they're giving you 10% commission, usually it's a red flag to say, stay clear.
So if you want to build trust in this market, you've got to stop hiding behind commission, the commission curtain, shall we say. Thank you very much for that little truth bomb. And let us know what you think in the comments. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Catch the rest of Lorenzo's episodes. And while you're at it, why not binge the whole season?